Exploring citrus farming in Central Florida. The face of the citrus farming is an ever-changing, important part of Florida's economic growth and development since its introduction in the 1400s. Citrus was introduced to the New World via Columbus's voyage to the island of Hispaniola in 1493. A few years later, in 1513, another Spanish explorer, Ponce de Leon, brought citrus seeds to Florida. The Spanish conquistador managed to plant the seeds of what was to become a billion-dollar industry that would later put Florida on the New World map. By 1579, orange trees were growing in the St. Augustine area. With good growing conditions, groves were established, and the industry was thriving. One of the industry's first successful orange plantations was started on Fish Island near St. Augustine. Encountering a different way to care for oranges during harvest that saved oranges from damage while they were exported. One man would pick the oranges and hand them down to another man who put the fruit carefully into a barrel for shipment. During the early 1800s, it is estimated that over 2 million oranges were exchanged from St. Augustine and surrounding areas into the marketplace, but that would not last long. The First Coast saw one of its coldest winter spells in history. 10 straight days of freezing air blew in from the northwest. This bitter cold destroyed much of the citrus crops that year. The trees that survived the hard freeze are a direct source of trees planted today. During 1885, citrus growers formed the Florida Fruit Exchange. This was the first organization to assist growers increase profits from oranges. The organization helped growers in picking, handling, packing, and offered a unified approach in marketing. At the time, oranges were $1 a box. The Great Freeze of 1894 through 95 devastated Florida's thriving citrus industry. Production dropped from 2,808,000 boxes to 147,000. As a direct result of the freeze pattern, the citrus groves had to explore new territory farther south. As railroads expanded towards the late 19th century, trains began supplying citrus to new markets. The introduction of the rail access to central parts of Florida became easier, and citrus farmers migrated inland to the central part of the state. Consequently, citrus on the First Coast is not unheard of today, but is nowhere near its heyday of the early 1800s. During the same period, the Florida Citrus Exchange was formed to protect local growers from being taken advantage of during the exportation of their wares. Organizers and board members visited California to exchange ideas of successful citrus growing. As a result, they learned improved marketing, advertising, and promotional techniques. One of Central Florida's citrus pioneers was Ben Hill Griffin Jr. With a small business mindset, his enormous work ethic, combined with frugality, fairness, and good intuition, made him one of the greatest citrus barons Florida has ever known. Ben Hill Griffin Jr. was born during a hurricane on October 20th, 1910, in Tiger Bay, Florida. Griffin began working in his family's groves at the age of 5. By 1914, the citrus industry as a whole encountered new barriers. The State Plant Board began working hard to eradicate citrus canker and secure lower freight rates for exchange while shipping.
Well, the citrus canker is actually a lesion on the outside of the plant, so it never gets into the inside of the plant. It doesn't get into the phloem, the vascular system.
While Ben Hill Griffin was pursuing his education, during the 1920s, Central Florida growers were fighting a new nemesis. The Mediterranean fruit fly had been introduced.
The fruit fly, which is an invasion of a very small fly from South America, would penetrate the peel of the orange and cause it to decay.
In 1933, as a wedding gift, Griffin's father gifted Ben Hill and Eleanor Griffin a 10-acre grove. Griffin's father taught him many things about citrus growing, but among the most valuable of these lessons was citrus planted on the southern slopes of deep, large lakes tend to escape freezes the best. During this time, the combined impact of the University of Florida and the start of the Institute of Food and Agricultural Services research project were tremendous. Citrus acreage doubled and production tripled. Central Florida grove owners were able to use migrant workers to help with the heavy workload. Griffin's enterprise quickly grew to become one of the largest independently owned citrus-based operations in the country, but the road to success was certainly not an easy one. By mid-century, the citrus industry was undergoing large transformations as new technologies became available. Researchers at IFAS discovered that copper and manganese were lacking in Central Florida soil, and appropriate fertilizers are tested. Meanwhile, scientists in a small lab in Winter Haven discovered a breakthrough in the process of making juice concentrate, which retains 90% of its original vitamin C content for 12 months. As a result, the price for fresh fruit began to fall.
Springboard for citrus production in the state of Florida. It took us from a fresh fruit operation only to some canned, but the product itself was not very good quality. And so when concentrate came about, it enabled us to have the quality of the fruit and the flavor of the fruit to be able to deliver to the housewife.
The United States Army requested 25,000 gallons of concentrate for trial use. Mr. Griffin remained confident that the price of fresh fruit would rise again. Later, California suffered a serious freeze, and the price of fresh Florida oranges increased dramatically. In 1951, Mr. Griffin purchased a Minute Maid factory and became a major producer of concentrate. He would later escape a freeze that wiped out many other groves in the state. The price of concentrate rose dramatically. Griffin became a millionaire overnight and allowed him to explore international markets and invest in out-of-state facilities. In the 1960s, some growers encountered a high volume loss in their crops due to a fungus caused by a burrowing worm. This was a turning point for scientists with the use of oil spray for pest control. The 70s brought the value of citrus trees in Florida to an excess of $1 billion. Through the 1980s and 90s, extensive research was being done in the Citrus Research and Education Center in Lake Alfred, Florida. Dr. Theodore Wheaton and his team were working on methods to protect citrus trees from freezing water using heaters or wind machines. He and his team explored citrus grove design using tree spacing, topping or hedging, and crop regulation. He conducted research on using water management for freeze protection and the use of reclaimed water and micro-sprinkler technology that remains in practice today. The pursuit of these new technologies was of great benefit during the freeze of 1989. These studies saved thousands of trees. The loss of Ben Hill Griffin on March 1, 1990 was felt industry-wide.
I was very fortunate that my father gave me the opportunity to learn from each segment of the industry, from the growing, the processing, the marketing.
At the start of this century, grove owners explored new technology to boost yield. Called precision agriculture, the use of GPS helped growers with the detection of disease, pest problems, and soil deficiency. The decades of work provided by the University of Florida and its extension offices have helped the citrus industry become a $9.13 billion industry. Natural disaster encounters have also impacted citrus. Hurricane Charley plowed through central Florida on August 13, 2004, devastating the citrus industry by destroying not only the current crop, but also demolishing millions of trees. Today, oranges remain the golden apples of Florida, and citrus still is considered one of the state's most important industries. However, Florida's $946 million preliminary on-tree value of the 2013 through 14 citrus crop is 19% less than the revised value of $1.16 billion for 2012 through 2013. Recently, growers have tried to bounce back, but in central Florida, particularly Polk County, there has been an increase in the effects of greening combined with commercial development. They remain hopeful that scientists will continue to work on eradicating greening, and Florida will once again be the top providing citrus capital, replacing Brazil and helping our country's economy.
We are currently growing blueberries to maybe offset the losses that we're currently receiving in the groves.
Considering that, however, peaches in particular are very difficult to compete in the marketplace because our quality is and size of our peach crop is not very large. The size of the fruit itself doesn't compete with South Carolina.
While current growers encounter serious disease issues, they are exploring new opportunities in the market, encountering changes that may impact their families for the next generations. They are exchanging their ideas with each other and some oranges for other fruits, such as strawberries, blueberries, and peaches, while remaining hopeful facing the future.
Little orange bird in the sunshine tree. Won't you sing something sunny just for me?